Hello everyone, welcome to your next class. In this one, we're going to be talking about try and except statements. They're similar to if and else statements in terms of how they basically operate and what generally their intentions are for. They're really good for dealing with error handling in your code. So you have, eventually you're going to have like big blocks of code with many lines that are like, may or may not work because of all kinds of different things that can go wrong. And try and except statements are really useful to keep the rest of your code operating, even if some things are prone to change or error out sometimes. And it allows you to also find the errors and what exactly they are without having your code completely crash and start over. So what you're going to learn today is we're going to learn a little bit about try and except logic. We're going to spend time with the syntax of try and except code. I'm going to introduce you to some error handling, meaning what kind of errors you typically see in Python code, and how you can raise these errors when you do some command. And then we're going to use an example with a module called traceback that allows you to do some interesting things with how your error handling is going. Basically, it makes it easier for you to manage your error handling and do something about it. So first off, for definitions, a try and except statement is very much like an if and else statement in that it has this kind of like if do this code, otherwise if something doesn't work in the code, like there's an error with it, then do this other set of commands, which would be the except statement. So it's similar to if-else statements in that, you have a block of code and you want to try and run, otherwise do something else. But in this case, rather than it being, if and else with logic that actually works in Python, there's likely to be some sort of error within the try part of the statement. And then the except essentially allows you to return or do some kind of response in case that block of code doesn't work. And we're going to use something called traceback, the traceback2 module, which is a module in Python. You'll need to download this in Anaconda or with whatever method you download packages with. Download the traceback2 module for Python 3.4 plus. And this makes our exception handling a lot easier, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay guys, so why don't we move into our syntax section. I'm going to show you basically how try and except syntax works. It should be really easy for you. So this will be a quick syntax section. Let's jump into that. Okay, here we are in our sample code, guys. First thing I did was just initialize a simple variable here because I want to throw a very particular kind of error. So what I'm going to do is I want this set of code to just run a simple command. I want to do a division where I divide x by y, but if I'm sure you guys know, how do you divide anything by 0? It's like it does not compute. It's not something that'll work. And so there would definitely be an error thrown in this line of code, okay? So what you can do is you can use an except, if a try and except statement, if you want to see if you can catch this if it were to happen, or any other type of complex code. Now you don't throw error, you don't do this part of the syntax. There are different types of errors that are replaced by this piece of error here. So when we look at how we actually build this syntax in the code, there are going to be many different types of errors that you can replace this with here, okay? So what I want you guys to see is how this code works, how the syntax of this all works, so that you have a try, and if this fails, you can say except and have control over what it accepts to specific errors. So you have multiple accepts basically. And then you can do some other set of code. This is all indented, remember, because we have a colon here. Each of the try statement and the except statement both have colons. And we then can run something else in case this does error out. In this case, we're going to print what the error is. We can also have it do some other set of code where, it adds plus equals to y here to 1. and then gets it to try again because you have some sort of weird logic in your code that makes sense to do. So that's basically how the try and except works in terms of syntax. It's a simple one in that it's very similar to like if and else. I kind of, when I code with this, I usually think of it in a very if and else way. And you'll see what I mean as we get more logic that we can add on top of it. We can actually use something like this except error, for instance, where it'll capture any of the errors as an object using that traceback module, for instance. So let's hop into code and I'll show you how this all works, because this is a lot easier to just show you in terms of with running code rather than talking about it. So let's hop into that. Okay, so here we are. First thing you'll notice is that I've added a few pieces of code and there's no try and except here. First, I just added import traceback2, which is what we're going to use soon. I'm going to comment this out for a second so we can play with some things. I have an x and I have our y equals 22 as opposed to, any other kind of number, I guess. And we did a simple if and else statement. You'll also notice there's no try and except here at the moment. I have an if where this is greater than 20 and pass, and an else where it's not. I'm just assuming it's less than 20. So what happens if we wanted to run some weird code in here and we wanted to make sure that it worked and didn't just error out, it did something else? We could, rather than having like, our result equals x divided by y error out, we can go try this result. And then when I go except here, I can go space and press tab, and Jupyter Notebook is going to show all the different types of errors that I can catch for my try and except statement. I'm just going to do, I know what error we're looking for this example, zero division error. So this would error out because something's being divided by 0. So I can go except zero division error and print, let me see here, let me pull up my code. Yeah, so we can just do zero division error there and then print divided by 0, okay? By 0. There we go. And let's see what happens. There we go. So it does say divided by 0. Now what happens if we try to do this with a different type of error, an input-output error? I'll show you what some of these other error statements mean in another class. Okay, guys? Let's see what happens here. So we get, our whole program crashes. We get an error because we said except, being it's an IO error, do this, print this, but because there was an except that it wasn't, it was a zero division error, it didn't know what to do. It caught an error that doesn't complete the try and except statement. We can do this here and see that it's missing that. And then if we also do something like include that 0 back, we see that it does indeed catch it. So what we could do, so basically what I'm saying is, let's see if we can also add this. Let's try this one here so you can see what I'm saying here. Let's see if we copy and paste this, or we just go print IO error, and then we go except 0. Oops. There we go. So you can actually build separate processes for each error depending on which one is coming in. Consequently, you can also do this and have both errors have some sort of statement together. Something else went wrong. And there you go. So when we now change this, we can get the response we expected. Let's print result here, and nothing else came out because nothing happened. So now this try statement does work, and what we can do is adjust this to 18 and have our else statement also working at the same time. Alright guys, in this one we started out with a little bit of try and accept logic. We did some basic error handling with try and accept. I showed you how to throw up like what kinds of errors are available for Python to parse through and how you can deal with each of them separately, even like have multiple accept statements to handle multiple types of errors. We didn't quite get to the traceback2 package yet, but it's a good thing that you downloaded it because in the next section we're going to spend more time on that, okay? So we're going to spend time looking at traceback2 as well as a couple of other statements like finally and adding else statements on top of try and accept. So with that, guys, thank you very much and see you next class.